Hi, hello, welcome. This is Let's Talk About Myths, baby. And once again, as always, I am your host, Liv, because it really wouldn't be anyone else. And I am back with another reading of The Fall of Troy. We are continuing on from last week's, which was Book 4 and then part of Book 5, and featured the funeral games for Achilles. It ended with the introduction that we're doing the final portion of the funeral games, basically, and that would be the fight over Achilles' armor, which, of course, was like 10 to 15 minutes of me reading just the description of his armor, because it is incredible. It is meant to be the most wondrous, divine, godly made thing that these mortal heroes could ever imagine. And that is why Ajax the Great and Odysseus are about to fight for it. Just another reminder that this translation is incredibly old and sometimes uses language. I try to adjust in the moment. Things like hathis, I'm just going to fix that for you if I can. But it does mean that also there's not a lot of clarity, and they use a lot of the ancient Greek forms of the names, which honestly in English can be a little confusing if you don't know what they are. So Pelides is Achilles. It's just referring to him as the son of Peleus. The son of Tydeus is Diomedes and is just frequently called the son of Tydeus. I don't think I even had the word Diomedes in last week's. There are two Ajaxes, the great and the lesser. The one who's fighting today is the great, and the other is the son of Oileus. That's usually how he's referred. This is Quintus Smyrnaeus' The Fall of Troy, Book 5 and 6, or part of them, translated by A.S. Way. But to Idomeneus and Atreus' son spoke Nestor apart, and willingly they heard. Friends, a great woe and unendurable this day the careless gods have laid on us, in that into this lamentable strife Ajax the mighty has been thrust by them against Odysseus, passing wise. For he, to whichsoever God gives the victor's glory, oh yes, he shall rejoice. But he that loses all for the grief in all the Danaans' hearts for him. And ours shall be the deepest grief of all, for that man will not in the war stand by us as old. A sorrowful day it shall be for us, whichsoever of these shall break into fierce anger, seeing they are of our heroes chiefest, this in war and that in council. Hearken then to me, seeing that I am the oldest of you all, not by a few years only, which with mine age is prudence joined, for I have suffered and wrought much, and in counsel ever the old man, who knows much, and excels younger men. Therefore let us ordain to judge this cause between godlike Ajax and war-fain Odysseus, our Trojan captives. They shall say whom most our foes dread, and who saved Pelides' corpse from that most deadly fight. Lo, in our midst be many spear-won Trojans, thralls of fate, and these will pass true judgment on these two, to neither showing favor, since they hate alike all authors of their misery. He spoke, and replied Agamemnon, lord of spears, Ancient, there is none other in our midst wiser than you, of Danaans young or old, in that you say that unforgiving wrath will burn in him to whom the gods herein deny the victory. For these which strive are both our chiefest. Therefore my heart too is set on this, that to the thralls of war this judgment we commit. The loser then shall against Troy devise his deadly work of vengeance, and shall not be wroth with us. He spoke, and these three, being of one in mind, in hearing of all men, refused to judge judgment so thankless. They would none of it. Therefore they set the high-born sons of Troy there in their midst, spear thralls although they were, to give just judgment in the warriors' strife. Then in hot anger Ajax rose, and he spoke. Odysseus, frantic soul, why has a god deluded you to make you hold yourself my peer in might invincible? Do you dare say that you, when slain Achilles lay in the dust, when round him swarmed the Trojans, did bear back that furious throng, when I amidst them hurled death, and you cowered away? Your dam bore the craven and a weakling wretch, frail in comparison of me, as is a cur beside a lion thunder-voiced. No battle-biding heart is in your breast, but wiles and treachery be all your care. Have you forgotten how you did shrink back from faring with Achaea's gathered host to Ilium's holy burge, till Atreus' sons forced you, the cowering craven? How loth soever to follow them, would God thou hadst never come! For by my counsel left we in Lemnos' isle, groaning in agony, Proeus' son renowned, and not for him alone was ruin devised of you, for battle and counsel better than you. And now you dare to rise up against me, neither remembering my kindness, nor having respect unto the mightier man who rescued you erewhile, when you did quaff in fight before the onset of your foes, when you, forsaken of all Greeks beside, amid tumult of the fray, was fleeing too. Oh, that in that great fight Zeus' self had stayed my dauntless might with thunder from his heaven. Then with two-edged swords the Trojan men had hewn you limb from limb, and to their dogs had cast your carrion. Then you had not presumed to meet me, trusting in your trickeries. Wretched, wherefore, if you vaunt your might in beyond all others, have you set your ships in the line center, screened from foes, not dared as I on the far wing to draw them up? Because you were afraid. Not you it was who saved from devouring fire the ships, but I, with heart uncoiling there, stood fast facing the fire, and Hector, even he gave back before me everywhere in fight. You did fear him, yes, with deadly fear. Oh, had this our contention been but set amidst that very battle, when the roar of conflict arose around Achilles slain, then had your own eyes seen me bearing forth out from the battle's heart and fury of foes that goodly armor and its hero lord unto the tents. But here you can but trust in cunning speech and covet a place among the mighty. You have not strength to wear Achilles' arms invincible, nor sway his massy spear in your weak hands. But they are verily molded to my frame. Yes, seemly it is I wear these glorious arms. Who shall not shame a god's gift passing fair? But wherefore, for Achilles' glorious arms, with words discourteous, wrangling stand we here. Come, let us try in strife with brazen spears, who of us two is best in murderous right. For silver-footed Thetis, set in the midst this prize for prowess, not for pestilent words. In folkmote may men have some use for words. In pride of prowess I know me above you far, and great Achilles' lineage is my own. He spoke. With scornful glance and bitter speech Odysseus the resourceful chode with him. Ajax, unbridled tongue, why these vain words to me? You have called me pestilent, niddering, and weakling, yet I boast me far better than you in wit and speech, which things increase the strength of men. Lo, how the craggy rock, adamantine though it seems, the hewers of stone amid the hills by wisdom undermine full lightly, and by wisdom shipmen cross the thunderous plunging sea, when mountain high it surges, and by craft do hunters quell strong lions, panthers, boars, yes, all the brood of wild things. Furious-hearted bulls are tamed to bear the yoke bands by device of men. Yes, all things are by wit accomplished. Still, it is the man who knows that excels the witless man alike in toils and counsels. For my keen wit did Aeneas' valiant son choose me of all men with him to draw nigh to Hector's watchmen. Yes, and mighty deeds we two accomplished. I it was who brought to Atreus' sons Pelides, far renowned, their battle helper. Whensoever the host needs some other champion, not for the sake of your hands will he come, nor by the rede of other Argives, Of Achaeans I alone will draw him with soft, suasive words to where strong men are warring. Mighty power the tongue has over men when courtesy inspires it. Valor is a deedless thing, and bulk and big assemblage of a man comes to naught by wisdom unattended. But unto me the mortals gave both strength and wisdom, and unto the Argives' host made me a blessing. Nor, as you have said, have you in time past saved me when in flight from foes. I never fled, but steadfastly withstood the charge of all the Trojan host. Furious, the enemy came on like a flood, but I, by might of hands, cut short the thread of many lives. Herein you say not true of me in the fray did you not shield nor save, but for your own life roughest, lest a spear should pierce your back if you should turn to flee from war. My ships, I drew them up midline, not dreading the battle fury of any foe, but to bring healing unto Atreus' sons of war's calamities. And you did set far from their help your ships. Nay more, I seamed with cruel stripes my body, and entered so the Trojans' burge, that I might learn of them of all their devising for this troublous war. Nor ever I dreaded Hector's spear, myself rose mid the foremost, eager for the fight, when, prowess confident, he defied us all. Yes, in the fight around Achilles, I slew foes far more than you. It was I who saved the dead king with this armor. Not a whit I dread your spear now, but my grievous hurt with pain still vexes me, the wound I got in fighting for these arms and their slain lord. In me, as in Achilles, is Zeus's blood. He spoke. Strong Ajax answered him again. Most cunning and most pestilent of men, nor I nor any other Argive saw you toiling in that fray, when Trojans strove fiercely to hale away Achilles slain. My might it was that with the spear unstrung the knees of some in fight, and others thrilled with panic as they pressed on ceaselessly. Then fled they in dire straits, as geese or cranes flee from an eagle swooping as they feed along a grassy meadow. So, in dread, the Trojans, shrinking backward from my spear and lightning sword, fled into Ilium to escape destruction. If your might came there ever at all, not anywhere near me with foes you fought, somewhere far afoot, mid other ranks you toiled, nowhere near Achilles, where the one great battle raged. He spoke, and replied Odysseus, the shrewd heart. Ajax, I hold myself no worse than you in wit or might, how goodly in outward show you be soever. Nay, I am keener far of wit than you in all the Argives' eyes. In battle prowess do I equal you, haply surpass, and this the Trojans know, who tremble when they see me from afar. You too know, and others know my strength by that hard struggle in the wrestling match, when Peleus' son set glorious prizes forth beside the barrow of Patroclus slain. So spoke Laertes' son, the world-renowned. Then on that strife, disastrous of the strong, the sons of Troy gave judgment. Victory and those immortal arms awarded they with one consent to Odysseus, mighty in war. Greatly his soul rejoiced, but one deep groan broke from the Greeks. Then Ajax' noble might stood frozen stiff, and suddenly fell on him dark bewilderment. All blood within his frame boiled, and his gall swelled, bursting forth in flood. Against his liver heaved his bowels, his heart with anguished pangs was thrilled, fierce stabbing throes shot through the filmy veil between bone and brain, and darkness and confusion wrapped his head. With fixed eyes staring on the ground, he stood still as a statue. Then his sorrowing friends closed around him, led him to the shapely ships, murmuring consolations. But his feet trod for the last time with reluctant steps that path, and hard behind him followed doom. When to the ships beside the boundless sea the Argives, faint for supper and for sleep, had passed, into the great deep Thetis plunged, and all the Nereids with her. Round them swam sea monsters many, children of the brine. Against the wise Prometheus bitter wroth the sea-maids were, remembering how that Zeus, moved by his prophecies, unto Peleus gave Thetis to wife, a most unwilling bride. Then cried in wrath to these Cimothoi, "Oh, that pestilent prophet had endured all pangs he merited, when deep burrowing the eagle tore his liver, I renewed." So to the dark-haired sea-maids cried the nymph. Then sank the sun, the onrush of the night shadowed the fields, the heavens were star-bestrewn, and by the long-prowed ships the Argives slept by ambrosial sleep, overmastered and by wine, the which from proud Idomeneus' realm of Crete the shipment bore over foaming leagues of sea. But Ajax, wroth against the Argive men, would none of meat or drink, nor clasped him round the arms of sleep. In fury he donned his mail, he clutched his sword, thinking unspeakable thoughts. For now he thought to set the ships aflame and slaughter all the Argives, now to hew with sudden onslaught of his terrible sword guileless Odysseus limb from limb. Such things he proposed, nay, had soon accomplished all, had Pallas not with madness smitten him. For over Odysseus, strong to endure, her heart yearned, as she called to mind the sacrifices offered to her of him continually. Therefore she turned aside from Argive men the might of Ajax, as a terrible storm whose wings are laden with dread hurricane blasts comes with portents of heart-numbing fear to shipmen when the Pleiades, fleeing adread from glorious Orion, plunge beneath the stream of tireless ocean, when the air is turmoil and the sea is mad with storm. So rushed he, whithersoever his feet might bear. This way and that he ran, like some fierce beast which darts down a rock-walled glen's ravines with foaming jaws and murderous intent against the hounds and huntsmen who have torn out the cave her cubs and slain. She runs this way and that, and roars, if mid the brakes haply she yet may see the dear ones lost, whom if a man meet in that maddened brood, straightway his darkest of all days has dawned. So ruthless, raving rushed he, blackly boiled his heart, as cauldron on the fire god's hearth maddens with ceaseless hissing over the flames from blazing billets coiling round its sides, at bidding of the toiler eager-souled to singe the bristles of a huge-fed boar. So was his great heart boiling in his breast. Like a wild sea he raved, like tempest blast, like the winged might of tireless flame amidst the mountains maddened by a mighty wind, when the wide blazing forest crumbles down in fervent heat. So Ajax, his fierce heart with agony stabbed, in maddened misery raved. Foam frothed about his lips, a beast-like roar howled from his throat. About his shoulders clashed his armor. They which saw him trembled, all cowed by the fearful shout of that one man. From ocean then uprose dawn, golden-rained, like a soft wind up-floated sleep to heaven, and there met Hera, even then returned to Olympus back from Tethys, unto whom but yestermorning she went. She clasped him round and kissed him, who had been her marriage kin, since at her prayer on Ida's Erist he had lulled asleep Cronion, when his anger burned against the Argives. Straightway Hera passed to Zeus's mansion, and sleep swiftly flew to Pasiphae's couch. From slumber woke all nations of the earth. But Ajax, like Orion the invincible, prowled on, still bearing murderous madness in his heart. He rushed upon the sheep like lion fierce whose savage heart is stung with hunger pangs. Here, there, he smote them, laid them dead in dust thick as the leaves which the strong north wind's might strews when the waning year is to winter turned. So on the sheep in fury Ajax fell, deeming he dealt to Danaans this evil doom. Then to his brother Menelaus came, and spoke, but not in hearing of the rest. This day shall surely be a ruinous day for all, since Ajax thus is sense distraught. It may be he who will set fire to the ships aflame, and slay us all amidst our tents in wrath for those lost arms. Would God that Thetis never had set them for the prize of rivalry. Would God Laertes' son had not presumed in folly of soul to strive with a better man. Fools were we all, and some malignant god beguiled us. For the one great war defense left to us, since Aeacus' son fell in battle, was Ajax's mighty strength. And now the gods will to our loss destroy him, bringing bane on you and me, that all we may fill up the cup of doom and pass to nothingness. He spoke, and replied Agamemnon, lord of spears, Now, nay, Menelaus, though your heart is wrung, be you not wrath with the resourceful king of Cephallenian folk, but with the gods who plot our ruin. Blame not him who often has been our blessing and our enemy's curse. So heavy-hearted spoke the Danaan kings, but by the streams of Xanthus, far away beneath the tamarisks, shepherds cowered to hide from death, as when from a swift eagle cower hares beneath tangled copses, when with sharp, fierce scream this way and that, with wings wide shadowing, he wheels very nigh. So they here there quailed from the presence of that furious man. At last, above a slaughtered ram he stood, and with a deadly laugh he cried to it, Lie there in the dust, be meat for dogs and kites. Achilles' glorious arms have saved not you, for which your folly strove with a better man. Lie there, you cur, no wife shall fall on you, and clasp and wail thee and her fatherless child, nor shall you greet your parents' longing eyes, the staff of their old age. Far from your land your carrion, dogs and vultures shall devour. So cried he, thinking that amidst the slain Odysseus lay in blood boltered at his feet. But in that moment from his mind and eyes Athena tore away the nightmare fiend of madness, havoc-breathing, and it passed thence swiftly to the rock-walled river Styx, where dwelled the winged Erinyes, they which still visit with torments overweening men. Then Ajax saw those sheep upon the earth, gasping in death, and sore amazed he stood, for he divined that the blessed ones his senses had been cheated. All his limbs failed under him. His soul was anguish-thrilled. He could not in his horror take one step forward nor backward. Like some towering rock fast-rooted amid the mountains, there he stood. But when the wild rout of his thoughts had rallied, he groaned in misery, and in anguish wailed, Ah me, why do the gods abhor me so? They have wrecked my mind, have with fell madness filled, making me slaughter all these innocent sheep. Would God that on Odysseus' pestilent heart my hands had so avenged me. Miscreant, he brought on me a fell curse. Oh, may his soul suffer all torments that the avenging fiends devise for villains. On all other Greeks may they bring murderous battle, woeful griefs, and chiefly on Agamemnon, Atreus' son. Not scatheless to the home may he return, so long desired. But why should I consort, a brave man, with the abominable? Perish the Argive host, perish my life, now unendurable. The brave no more has his due guerdon, but the baser sort are honored most and loved, as this Odysseus has worshipped mid the Greeks, but utterly have they forgotten me and all my deeds, all that I wrought and suffered in this cause. So spoke the brave son of strong Telamon, then thrust the sword of Hector through his throat. Forth rushed the blood in torrent. In the dust outstretched he lay, like Typhon when the bolts of Zeus had blasted him. Around him groaned the dark earth as he fell upon her breast. Then thronging came the Danaans, when they saw lay low in the dust this hero. But ere then none had dared draw near him, but in deadly fear they watched him from afar. Now hasted they, and flung themselves upon the dead. Outstretched upon their faces, on their heads they cast dust, and their wailing went up to the sky. As when men drive away the tender lambs out of the fleecy flock to feast thereon, and round the desolate pens the mothers leap, ceaselessly bleeding, so over Ajax rang that day a very great and bitter cry. Wild echoes pealed from Ida, forest palled, and from the plain, the ships, the boundless sea. Then Teucer, clasping him, was minded too to rush on bitter doom. Howbeit the rest held from the sword his hand. Anguished he fell upon the dead, outpouring many a tear more comfortlessly than the orphan babe that wails beside the hearth, with ashes strewn on head and shoulders, wails bereavement's day that brings death to the mother who has nursed the fatherless child. So wailed he, ever wailed his great death-stricken brother, creeping slow around the corpse and uttering his lament. O Ajax, mighty-souled, why was your heart distraught, that you should deal unto yourself murder and bale? All was it that the sons of Troy might win a breathing space from woes, might come and slay the Greeks. Now you are not? From these shall all the olden courage fail, when fast they fall in fight. Their shield from harm is broken now. For me, I have no will to see my home again, now you are dead. No, but I long here also now to die, so that the earth may shroud me, and you. Not for my parents so much do I care, if haply yet they live, if haply yet they spared from the grave. In Salamis they dwell. As for you, O my glory and my crown. So cried he, groaning sore. With answering moan, queenly Tecmessa wailed, the princess bride of noble Ajax, captive of his spear, yet taken by him to wife, and household queen over all his substance, even all that wives won with a bride price rule for wedded lords. Clasped in his mighty arms, she bore to him a son, Eurysaces, in all things like unto his father, far as babe might yet be cradled in his tent. With bitter moan fell she on that dear corpse, all her fair form close shrouded in her veil and dust defiled, and from her anguished heart cried piteously, Alas for me now you are dead, not by the hands of foes in fight struck down, but by your own. On me is come a grief ever abiding. Never had I looked to see your woeful death day here by Troy. Visions shattered by the rude hands of fate. Oh, that the earth had yawned wide for my grave before I beheld your bitter doom. On me no sharper, more heart-piercing pang has come. No, not when the first from fatherland afar and parents you did bear me, wailing sore mid other captives, when the day of bondage had come on me, a princess before. Not for that dear lost home so much I grieve, nor for my parents dead as now for you. For all your heart was kindness unto me the hapless, and you made me your wife, one soul with you, yes, and you promised to throne me queen of fair towered Salamis, when home we went from Troy. The gods denied accomplishment thereof. And you have passed unto the unseen land. You have forgot me and your child, who never shall make glad his father's heart, shall never mount your throne. But him shall strangers make a wretched thrall, for when the father is no more, the babe is ward of meaner men. A weary life the orphan knows, and suffering comes in from every side upon him like a flood. To me too thraldom's day shall doubtless come, now you've died, who was my God on earth. Then, in all kindness, Agamemnon spoke. Princess, no man on earth shall make you thrall, while Teucer lives yet, while yet I live. You shall have worship of us evermore and honor as a goddess, with your son, as though yet living were that godlike man, Ajax, who was the Achaeans' chiefest strength. Ah, that he had not laid this load of grief on us all in dying by his own right hand. For all the countless armies of his foes never availed to slay him in fair fight. So spoke he, grieved to the inmost heart. The folk woefully wafted all around. Over the Hellespont echoes of mourning rolled, the sighing air darkened around, a widespread sorrow pall. Yes, grief laid hold on wise Odysseus' self for the great dead, and with remorseful soul to anguish-stricken Argives thus he spoke. O friends, there is no greater curse to men than wrath, which grows till its bitter fruit is strife. Now wrath has goaded Ajax on to this dire issue of the rage that filled his soul against me. Would to God that never those Trojans in the strife for Achilles' arms had crowned me with that victory, for which strong Telamon's brave son, in agony of soul, thus perished by his own right hand. Yet blame me not, I pray you, for his wrath. Blame the dark, dolorous fate that struck him down. For had my heart foreboded any of this desperation of a soul distraught, never for victory had I striven with him, nor would I have suffered any Danaan else, though never so eager to contend with him. No, I had taken up those arms divine with my own hands, and gladly I would have given them to him, I, though himself desired it not. But for such mighty grief and wrath in him I had not looked, since not for a woman's sake, nor for a city, nor possessions wide I then contended, but for honor's meed, which always is for all right-hearted men the happy goal of all their rivalry. But that great-hearted man was led astray by fate, the hateful fiend, for surely it is unworthy a man to be made passion's fool. The wise man's part is steadfast-souled to endure all ills and not to rage against his lot. So spoke Laertes' son, the far-renowned. But when they all were weary of grief and groan, then to these sorrowing ones spoke Neleus' son. O friends, the pitiless-hearted fates have laid stroke after stroke of sorrow upon us. Sorrow for Ajax dead, for mighty Achilles, for many an Argive, and for my own son Antilochus. Yet all unmeet it is day after day with passion of grief to wail men slain in battle. No, we must forget laments and turn us to the better task of rendering dues beseeming to the dead, the dues of pyre, of tomb, of bones inurned. No lamentations will awake the dead, no note thereof he takes, when the fates, the ruthless ones, have swallowed him in night. So spoke he words of cheer. The godlike kings gathered with heavy hearts around the dead, and many hands upheaved the giant corpse, and swiftly bore him to the ships, and there washed they away the blood that clotted, lay dust-flecked on mighty limbs and armor. Then in linen swathed him round. From Ida's heights wood without measure did the young men bring, and piled it around the corpse. Billets and logs, yet more in a wide circle heaped they round, and sheep they laid thereon, fair woven vests, and goodly kine, and speed triumphant steeds, and gleaming gold, and armor without stint from slain foes by that glorious hero stripped. And lucent amber drops they laid thereon, tears, say they, which the daughters of the sun, the lord of omens, shed for Phaethon slain, when by Eridanus' flood they mourned for him. These, for undying honor to his son, the god made amber, precious in man's eyes. Even this the Argives on that broad-based pyre cast freely, honoring the mighty dead. And round him, groaning heavily, they laid silver, most fair, and precious ivory, and jars of oil, and whatsoever beside they have who heap up goodly and glorious wealth. Then thrust they in the strength of ravening flame, and from the sea there breathed a wind sent forth by Thetis to consume the giant frame of Ajax. All the night and all the morning burned beneath the urgent stress of that great wind beside the ships that giant form, as when Enceladus by Zeus's levin was consumed beneath Thrinacia, when from all the isle smoke of his burning rose, or like as when Hercules, trapped by Nessus's deadly guile, gave to devouring fire his living limbs. What time he dared that awful deed, when groaned all Aeta as he burned alive, and passed his soul into the air, leaving the man, far famous, to be numbered with the gods, when earth closed over his toil-tried mortal part. So huge amid the flames, all armor-clad, lay Ajax, all the joy of fight forgot, while a great multitude watching thronged the sands. Glad were the Trojans, but the Achaeans grieved. But when that goodly frame by ravening fire was all consumed, they quenched the pyre with wine. They gathered up the bones and reverently laid on a golden casket. Hard beside Retium's headland heaped they up a mound measureless high. Then scattered they amidst the long ships, heavy-hearted for the man whom they had honored, even as Achilles. Then black night, bearing unto all men sleep, up floated. So they broke bread and laid down waiting the child of the mist. Short was sleep, broken by fitful staring through the dark, haunted by dread, lest in the night the foe should fall on them, now that Telamon's son was dead. That was Book 5. Now, Book 6. Rose dawn from ocean and Tithonus' bed, and climbed the steeps of heaven, scattering round flushed flakes of splendor, laughed all earth and air. Then turned unto their labors each to each, mortals, frail creatures dying daily. Then streamed to a folk-mote all the Achaean men at Menelaus' summons. When the host were gathered all, then in their midst he spoke. Listen to my words, you god-descended kings. My heart within my breast is burdened sore for men who perish, men that for my sake came to the bitter war, whose home return parents and homes shall welcome nevermore, for fate has cut off thousands in their prime. Oh, that the heavy hand of death had fallen on me before this I gathered you. But now has God laid on me cureless pain in seeing all these ills. Who could rejoice beholding strivings, struggles of despair? Come, let us which yet be alive in haste flee to the ships, each to his several land, since Ajax and Achilles both are dead. I look not, now they are slain, that we the rest shall escape destruction. No, but we shall fall before those terrible Trojans for my sake, and shameless Helen's. Think not that I care for her, for you I care, when I behold good men in battle slain. Away with her and her paltry paramour. The gods stole all discretion out of her false heart when she forsook my home and marriage bed. Let Priam and the Trojans cherish her, but let us straight return. It were better far to flee from dolorous war than all perish. So spoke he, but to try the Argive men. Far other thoughts than these made his heart burn with passionate desire to slay his foes, to break the long walls of their city down from their foundations, and to glut with blood Ares, when Paris mid the slain should fall. Fiercer is naught than passionate desire. Thus, as he pondered, sitting in his place, uprose Tydides, shaker of the shield, and chode in fiery speech with Menelaus. "O coward Atreus' son, what craven fear has gripped you, that you speak so to us as might a weakling child or woman speak? Not unto you. Achaea's noblest sons won't listen to you before Troy's coronal of towers be wholly dashed to the dust. For unto men valor is high renown, and flight is shame. If any man shall listen to the words of this your counsel, I will smite him from his head with sharp blue steel, and hurl it down for soaring kites to feast on. Up, all you who care to enkindle men to battle, rouse our warriors all throughout the fleet to whet the spear, to burnish corselet, helm and shield, and cause both men and horse, all which be keen in fight, to break their fast. Then on those plains, who is the stronger, Ares shall decide." So speaking, in his place he sat him down. Then rose up Thestor's son, and in the midst, where meet it is to speak, he stood forth and cried, "Hear me, you sons of battle-biding Greeks. You know I have the spirit of prophecy. Erewhile I said that you in the 10th year should lay waste towered Ilium. This the gods are even now fulfilling. Victory lies at the Argives' very feet. Come, let us send Diomedes and Odysseus, battle-staunch with speed, to Skyros overseas, by prayers here to bring Achilles' hero son. A light of victory shall be he to us." So spoke wise Thestius' son, and all the folk shouted for joy, for all their hearts and hopes yearned to see Calchas' prophecy fulfilled. Then to the Argives spoke Laertes' son. "Friends, it befits not to say many words this day to you in sorrow's weariness. I know that wearied men can find no joy in speech or song, though the Pyrades, the immortal muses, love it. At such time few words do men desire, but now this thing that pleases all the Achaean host will I accomplish. So, Tydides, fare with me, for if we two go, we shall surely bring, won by our words, war-fain Achilles' son. Yes, though his mother, weeping sore, should strive within her halls to keep him, for my heart trusts that he is a hero's valorous son." Then outspoke Menelaus earnestly, "Odysseus, the strong Argives help at need, if mighty-souled Achilles' valiant son from Skyros by your persuasion comes to aid us who yearn for him, and some heavenly one grants victory to our prayers, and I win home to Hellas, I will give to him wife, my noble child Hermione, with gifts many and goodly for her marriage dower, with a glad heart. I say he shall not scorn either his bride or high-born sire-in-law." With a great shout the Danaans hailed his words. Then was the throng dispersed, and to the ships they scattered, hungering for the morning meat which strengthens man's heart. So when they ceased from their eating and desire was satisfied, then with the wise Odysseus, Tydeus' son, drew down a swift ship to the boundless sea, and victual and all tackling cast therein. Then stepped they aboard, and with them 20 men skilled to row when winds were contrary, or when the unrippled sea slept beneath a calm. They smote the brine and flashed the boiling foam. On leapt the ship, a watery way was cleft about the oars that sweating rowers tugged, as when hard-toiling oxen, beneath the yoke straining, drag on a massy timbered wain, while creaks the circling axle beneath its load, and from their weary necks and shoulders stream down to the ground the sweat abundantly. So at the stiff oars toiled those stalwart men, and fast they laid behind them leagues of sea. Gazed after them the Achaeans as they went, then turned to whet their deadly darts and spears, the weapons of their warfare. In their town, the aweless Trojans armed themselves the while war-eager, praying to the gods to grant respite from slaughter, breathing space from toil. To these, while sorely thus they yearned, the gods brought present help in trouble, even the seed of mighty Hercules, Eurypylus. A great host followed him, in battle skilled, all that by long Caicus' outflow dwelt, full of triumphant trust in their strong spears. Round them, rejoicing, thronged the sons of Troy, as when tame geese within a pen gaze up on him who casts them corn, and round his feet throng hissing uncouth love, and his heart warms as he looks down on them. So thronged the sons of Troy, as on fierce heart Eurypylus they gazed, and gladdened was his aweless soul to see these throngs. From porchways women looked wide-eyed with wonder on the godlike man. Above all men he towered as he strode, as looks a lion when amid the hills he comes on jackals. Paris welcomed him, as Hector honoring him, his cousin he, being of one blood with him, who was born Astyoche, King Priam's sister fair, whom Telephus embraced in his strong arms. Telephus, whom to aweless Hercules Auge, the bright-haired, bare in secret love. That babe a suckling craving for the breast, a swift hind fostered, giving him the teat as to her own fawn in all love. For Zeus so willed it, in whose eyes it was not meet that Hercules' child should perish wretchedly. His glorious son with glad heart Paris led unto his palace through the wide-wayed burge beside Assaracus' tomb and stately halls of Hector and Tritonis' holy fane. Hard by his mansion stood, and there beside the stainless altar of home-warder Zeus rose. As they went, he lovingly questioned him of brethren, parents, and of marriage kin, and all he craved to know Eurypylus told. So communed they, on pacing side by side. Then came they to a palace great and rich. There, goddess-like, sat Helen, clothed upon with beauty of the graces. Maidens four about her plied their tasks. Others apart within that goodly bower wrought the works beseeming handmaids. Helen, marveling, gazed upon Eurypylus. On Helen he. Then these in converse each with each other spoke in all that odorous bower. The handmaids brought and set beside their lady high seats too, and Paris sat him down, and at his side Eurypylus. That hero's host encamped without the city where the Trojan guards kept watch. Their armor laid they on the earth, their steeds, yet breathing battle, stood thereby, and cribs were heaped with horses' provender. Up floated night, and darkened earth and air, then feasted they before that cliff-like wall. Ketchian men and Trojans, babble of talk, rose from the feasters. All around the glow of blazing campfires lighted up the tents, pealed out the pipe's sweet voice, and hot boys rang out their clear shrilling reeds. The witching strain of lyres was rippling round. From far away the Argives gazed and marveled, seeing the plain aglare with many fires, and hearing notes of flutes and lyres, neighing of chariot steeds and pipes, the shepherds and the banquet's joy. Therefore they bade their fellows each in turn keep watch and ward about the tents till dawn, lest these proud Trojans feasting by their walls should fall on them and set the ships aflame. Within the halls of Paris all this while, with kings and princes, Telephus' hero son feasted, and Priam and the sons of Troy each after each prayed him to play the man against the Argives, and in bitter doom to lay them low. And blithe he promised all. So when they had supped, each hied him to his home, but there Eurypylus laid him down to rest full nigh the feast hall, in the stately bower where Paris theretofore himself had slept with Helen, world-renowned. A bower it was most wondrous fair, the goodliest of them all. There lay he down, but otherwhere their rest took they, till rose the bright-throned Queen of Morning. Up sprang with dawn the son of Telephus, and passed to the host with all those other kings in Troy abiding. Straightway did the folk all battle-eager don their warrior gear, burning to strike in forefront of the fight. And now Eurypylus clad his mighty limbs in armor, that like levin flashes gleamed. Upon his shield by cunning hands were wrought all the great labors of strong Hercules. Thereon were seen 2 serpents flickering black tongues with grimly jaws. They seemed in act to dart, but Hercules' hands to right and left, albeit a baby's hands, now were throttling them, for aweless was his spirit. As Zeus's strength from the beginning was his strength, the seed of heaven abiders never deedless is nor helpless, but has boundless prowess, yes, even when in the womb unborn it lies. Nemea's mighty lion there was seen strangled in the strong arms of Hercules, his grim jaws dashed about with bloody foam. He seemed in verity gasping out his life. Thereby was wrought the Hydra, many-necked, flickering its dread tongues. Of its fearful heads some severed lay on the earth, but many more were budding from its necks, while Hercules and Iolaus, 2 dauntless-hearted, toiled hard. The one with lightning sickle sweeps lopped the fierce heads, his fellow seared each neck with glowing iron. The monster was so slain. Thereby was wrought the mighty tameless boar with foaming jaws. Real seemed the pictured thing, as by Aleides' giant strength the brute was to Eurystheus' living born on high. There fashioned was the fleet-foot stag, which laid the vineyards waste of hapless husbandsmen. The hero's hands held fast its golden horns, the while it snorted breath of ravening fire. Thereon were seen the fierce Stymphalian birds, some arrow-smitten dying in the dust, some through the grey air darting in swift flight. At this, at that one, hot in haste he seemed, Hercules sped the arrows of his wrath. Augeas' monstrous stable there was wrought with cunning craft on that invincible targe, and Hercules was turning through the same the deep flow of Alpheus' stream divine, while wondering nymphs looked down on every hand upon that mighty work. Elsewhere portrayed was the fire-breathing bull. The hero's grip on his strong horns wrenched round the massive neck. The straining muscles on his arms stood out. The huge beast seemed to bellow. Next thereto, wrought on the shield, was one in beauty arrayed as of a goddess, even Hippolyta. The hero by the hair was dragging her from her swift steed, with fierce resolve to wrest with his strong hands the girdle marvelous from the Amazon queen, while quailing shrank away the maids of war. There, in the Thracian land, were Diomedes' grim man-eating steeds. These at their gruesome mangers had he slain, and dead they lay with their fiend-hearted lord. There lay the bulk of giant Geryon, dead amid his kine. His gory heads were cast in dust, dashed down by that resistless club. Before him slain lay that most murderous hound, Orthros, in furious might like Kerberos, his brother hound. A herdman lay there by Eurytion, all bedabbled with his blood. There were the golden apples wrought, that gleamed in the Hesperides' garden undefiled. All round the fearful serpent's dead coils lay, and shrank the maids aghast from Zeus's bold son. And there, a dread sight even for the gods to see, was Kerberos, whom the loathly worm had borne to Typho in a craggy cavern's gloom close on the borders of eternal night. A hideous monster, warder of the gate of Hades, home of wailing, jailer hound of dead folk in the shadowy gulf of doom. But lightly Zeus's son with his crashing blows tamed him and haled him from the cataract flood of Styx with heavy drooping head and dragged the dog, sore loth, to the strange upper air all dauntlessly. And there at the world's end were Caucasus' long glens where Hercules, rending Prometheus's chains and hurling them this way and that with fragments of the rock whereinto they were riveted, set free the mighty Titan. Arrow-smitten lay the eagle of the torment there beside. There stormed the wild rout of the centaurs round the halls of Pholus, goaded on by strife and wine, with Hercules the monsters fought. Amidst the pine trunks stricken to death, they lay still grasping those strange weapons in dead hands, while some with stems long shafted still fought on in fury, and refrained not from the strife, and all their heads, gashed in the pitiless fight, were drenched with gore. The whole scene seemed to live. With blood the wine was mingled, meats and bowls and tables in one ruin shattered lay. There by Evenus' torrent, in fierce wrath for his sweet bride, he laid with the arrow low Nessus in mid-flight. Therewithal was wrought Antiochus' brawny strength, who challenged him to wrestling strife. He in those sinewy arms raised high above the earth and was crushed to death. There where swift Hellespont meets the outer sea lay the sea monster, slain by his ruthless shafts, while from Hesione he rent her chains. Of bold Alcides many a deed beside shone on the broad shield of Eurypylus. He seemed the war god, as from rank to rank he sped. Rejoiced the Trojans following him, seeing his arms and him clothed with the might of gods, and Paris hailed him to the fray. Glad am I for your coming, for my heart trusts that the Argives all shall wretchedly be with their ships destroyed, for such a man amid Greeks or Trojans never have I seen. Now by the strength and fury of Hercules, to whom in stature, might, and goodlihead most like you are, I pray you, have in mind him, and resolve to match his deeds with yours. Be the strong shield of Trojans hard bestead, win us a breathing space. You only, I think, from perishing Troy can thrust the dark doom back. With kindling words he spoke. That hero cried, Great-hearted Paris, like the blessed ones in goodlihead, this lies foreordained on the gods' knees, who in the fight shall fall and who outlive it. I, as honor bids and as my strength suffices, will not flinch from Troy's defense. I swear to turn from fight never, except in victory or death. Gallantly spoke he, with exceeding joy rejoiced the Trojans. Champions then he chose, Alexander and Aeneas fiery-souled, Polydamas, Pamon, and Deiphobus, and Ethicus, of Paphlagonian men the staunchest man to stem the tide of war. These chose he, cunning all in battle toil, to meet the foe in forefront of the fight. Swiftly they strode before that warrior throng, then from the city cheering charged. The host followed them in their thousands, as when bees follow by bands their leaders from the hives, with loud hum on a spring day pouring forth. So the fight the warriors followed these, and as they charged, the thunder tramp of men and steeds and clang of armor rang to heaven. As when a rushing mighty wind stirs up the barren sea plain from its nethermost floor, and darkling to the strand roll roaring waves, belching sea tangle from the bursting surf, and wild sounds rise from beaches harvestless, so as they charged, the wide earth rang again. Well, nerds, I think that's as good a place as any to leave it for today. I absolutely love that, the Trojans are getting this hero to join them, Eurypylus, and he's the son of Heracles. And so once again, we get this stunning description of armor. It's so reminiscent of Homer, but also just such a clear desire by this author to weave in all of the myth, that Heracles came before the Trojan War is so iconically tied to so many different things. The sea monster mentioned, the Hesione woman he saved, that was from Troy long before. It's just so fascinating. I love the way they weave in all of this stuff. And it gave me an easy place to stop, because that's where I'd stopped the last one. Also, Ajax's death, it really hurts. And it is the origin of the term falling on your sword. That is from this moment with Ajax, not necessarily in this version, but that Ajax the Great, this incredible great hero who no one else was able to kill, unlike Hector, unlike Achilles, they both died, but not Ajax. And so the fact that he died by his own hand, falling on his own sword, is just and it means a lot, but it's also just so famous. And it was a reminder to me, to remind you, I've said this before, but just a reminder that this work, and more famously, the Iliad that came before it, these are not, for all that the modern men of the world want to often see them this way, these are not stories of the glory of war. They are explicitly anti-war. These works are almost protests of war, of the indiscriminate slaughter of innocents. They intentionally tell these stories of war not to glorify the acts of these so-called heroes, but to remind the humans listening of the horrors that we inflict upon each other, and how either side always thinks that they are right. How it's why both the Greeks and the Trojans are the good guys. We don't ever think in the Iliad that the Trojans are worse than the Greeks, or that the Greeks are better than the Trojans. If anything, the Trojans seem more morally correct, even though they are they're the one that the Greeks are against, that the story is seemingly against, and yet we never think that they deserve it. This is a reminder. These works are a reminder that when wars are waged, the people that are hurt are the innocent, and that they don't deserve it, that they never deserve the death that comes from something like war. And I'm saying this obviously because of the modern world, but even that I won't call a war. It's not a war. In order for it to be a war, there has to be an opposing side that is actually a government or actually a country and is not ruled by oppression. In order for it to be war, the other side must have rights. They must be able to defend themselves. They must have an army. If the other side doesn't have an army, if the other side is just innocents that we are supposed to believe are hiding these criminals, that's not a war. And what we're watching right now is not a war. It's an extermination. I'm recording this bit, which frankly, I had to re-record this whole episode because I somehow lost most of it. And I noticed that as I was reading this one part, this same thing occurred to me again, that I had to point out that this is not a piece of literature that glorifies war. And it's the part where Ajax's wife finds him and speaks about his death. And I mean, it's obviously problematic. She's enslaved and she married him, but she very clearly cares for him in a way that I think is valid. And she really personifies the truth of this and what these works from the ancient world were trying to say, and just how true it still is today, because she speaks of being a captive of war, of being the victim of war. She, more than anyone else, at least up to this point, is a victim of this battle, of this war. She is just an innocent person who first had her her home ripped out from under her family ripped out from under her, and then, managed to find some kind of happiness in her new life and then had that ripped away from her. And if that is not reminiscent of what the poor people of Gaza are going through, I don't know what is. Imagine having your life ripped away from you, your family ripped away from you, and then you find some semblance of a life in some refugee camp, and then they bomb your refugee camp and you have to move to another, and that just keeps happening because the people they say are the other side of this quote-unquote war just keep bombing refugee camps, and they're bombing hospitals, so that's not safe either. They're killing doctors in the streets. And every time you think you've found some semblance of safety, of comfort, every time you think that maybe just today you and your family find something to eat, might find some shelter, might find just a bit of clean drinking water, that is the only highlight of your life, and even that now is nearing impossible to find. Before I started recording this, I saw an announcement from Associated Press that the UN has had to stop feeding people in Gaza because they ran out of food, because the border is blocked, because the settlers attack trucks with aid, because it's just, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I hope at this point, if you are listening to me, you know what is going on and you don't think that settlers attacking an aid truck are somehow in the right. But even still, I want to raise awareness of this because our governments don't want us to know. The media doesn't say it. Al Jazeera has been kicked out. Like, even the AP today were cut off. Israel cut off the AP's live stream of Gaza. And if you are the good guys, if you're not doing bad stuff, why do you want to stop so many journalists? Why do you kill so many journalists? Why do you stop the journalists from broadcasting what you're doing? If you're on the right side of history, then you're not worried about journalists. That's simply a fact. So anyway, don't forget. Don't let our governments gaslight us into thinking that this is right or okay. Just don't let them. And in the meantime, donate to, no one can get in or out now, but we hope that eventually they will. And hopefully if they've got enough money when the border reopens, these innocent people can flee the horror that the West is inflicting on them for simply existing as Palestinians. Because at this point, I've been thinking this for ages, but I think I'm ready to say it into a microphone, because at this point it's very clear that the entire intention is to just have us all forget that Palestinians ever existed. And with a country whose name is as old as Herodotus, we can't let that happen. We can't let them convince us that their country, that them as people never existed. Next week, one more reading of The Fall of Troy before we turn to some conversations. Let's Talk About Myths, Baby is written and produced by me, Liv Albert. Michaela Smith is the Hermes to my Olympians, the assistant producer. Laura Smith is the audio engineer and production assistant. Select music in this episode was by Luke Chaos. The podcast is part of the iHeart Podcast Network. Listen on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. And help me continue on the podcast. Keep the free one going by helping me and supporting on Patreon. Patreon.com/mythsbaby. I am Liv, and I love this shit.